Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Sam. I am the Health Education Project Specialist at the Maximum Eleanor Blum Patient Family Learning Center at Mass General. Before it gets started, I just want to go a few items with you all. Please note that today's session is being recorded for educational purposes. If you're interested in viewing the recording, it'll be made available on the Blum Center website at massgeneral.org/Blum-Center. Please note that you're in listen-only mode. Everyone has mute so you can hear our guest speaker today. If you have any questions for our guest speaker, you may use the chat feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. We'll have time for in the end. Only Blum Center staff and our guest speaker will see your questions. Please do not share any personal medical information or questions in the chat. If you have a personal medical question, please ask your doctor. Lastly, at the end of today's session, you'll be directed to a brief survey, which we'd like to ask you to help us complete. Your feedback is important to us as we plan future programs. Okay, so next I would like to introduce you all today's guest speaker. Joining us today, we have Cristelle Badaoui. Cristelle is currently a dietetic intern at Mass General training to become a registered dietitian. She graduated from Suffolk University with a bachelor's in biology and from Simmons University with a master's in nutrition. Cristelle is passionate about discussing the role that everyday habits play in disease prevention, weight management, and mental health. She joined us today to give a talk on the MyPlate approach to a balanced diet. But before we turn it over to Cristelle, Erin and Emily, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Jousman. I am a clinical senior nutritionist here in the MGH Outpatient Nutrition Center. So thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah. And hi, my name is Erin Childs. I'm a clinical nutrition specialist also over at MGH's Outpatient Nutrition Center, and happy to be here with Cristelle and Emily today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amy, for that introduction. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that okay? Yes, perfect. Okay, so thank you all for joining me here today. I'm excited to share with you today the MyPlate approach to a balanced diet. So MyPlate is a simple yet powerful tool for balancing food intake and promoting healthy eating habits. So today we will explore the key principles and benefits of this approach. But before we get into that, I just want to give some background information regarding MyPlate. So MyPlate is the current nutrition guide published by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion. Recommendations are created based on the dietary guidelines for Americans. So it is essentially a visual reminder to make healthy choices from each of the 5 different food groups, including grains, proteins, fruits, vegetables, and dairy. We will get into more detail about each group throughout this presentation. So you may or may not have heard of the food pyramid before. It was established by the government in 1992, but was replaced by the MyPlate method in 2011. The food pyramid was found to be complicated, outdated, and a bit overwhelming, as you can see from this photo here. It lacked some clarity and caused some confusion. So MyPlate took over, and the MyPlate method is a more simple approach, and the guidelines are more specific and clear when compared to the food pyramid. So now let's finally get into what the MyPlate guidelines actually are. So it is designed for the general population to follow, including adults as well as children. And MyPlate recommends making half of your plate fruits and vegetables while ensuring to prioritize whole fruits and varying your veggies, which we will discuss more later on. The second component is half of the grains consumed throughout the day should come from whole grains. There's also a focus on including different types of protein foods in your diet. So this can include seafood, lean meats, poultry, beans, nuts, seeds, any soy products, as well as eggs. The next guideline is moving from whole dairy to low-fat or fat-free dairy. Although it will not be a focus of this presentation, MyPlate also recommends being active to help prevent diseases and manage weight. So the goal should be to aim for at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week. So for example, if you were to do like a 30-minute walk for 5 out of the 7 days of the week, you would easily meet this goal. So the first group I want to go through today is grains, or also known as carbohydrates. So foods made from wheat, rice, oats, cornmeal, barley, or any cereal is considered a grain product. And examples include bread, pasta, cereals, grits, and tortillas. So grains are an important part of a balanced diet as our body relies on carbohydrates for fuel. And they are divided into two subgroups. So we have refined grains or whole grains. Whole grains have the entire kernel intact. So this includes the germ, the bran, and the endosperm. And most nutrients and fiber are found in the bran and germ. So some whole grain examples are whole wheat flour, bulgur, or also known as cracked wheat, oatmeal, and brown rice. Refined grains, on the other hand, have been milled, which is a process that removes the bran and the germ. So manufacturers do this to give grains a finer texture and improve shelf life, but it also removes dietary fiber, iron, and many B vitamins, which are normally found in the whole grains. So some examples of refined grain products include white flour, corn grits, white bread, and white rice. So MyPlate recommends having a quarter of your plate to come from the grain group for each meal. So the reason why MyPlate suggests making half of your grains whole grains is because whole grains offer many health benefits and contain more nutrients than refined grains, including fiber, B vitamins, and minerals such as magnesium, iron, and selenium. Fiber can help control and balance blood sugar and cholesterol levels and also regulate digestion. And then B vitamins, on the other hand, play a role in helping the body release energy from protein, fat, and carbohydrates that we eat. And minerals also benefit our bodies as well. So iron is a mineral your body needs for growth and development. Magnesium is used in building bones and releasing energy from muscles, and selenium helps support a healthy immune system. So all these components can be found in whole grains. So as you can see here, there are many examples of whole grain foods, including brown rice, quinoa, popcorn, and oats. So a good way to ensure you are getting enough whole grain in your diet is by swapping out half of your grain options for some of these options here. So for example, if you usually cook with white rice, switching to brown rice, and if you normally use white bread, switching to whole wheat bread. So these changes can help increase your whole grain and fiber intake throughout the day. So I will now go into the next food group of MyPlate, which is vegetables. So any vegetable or 100% vegetable juice counts as part of the vegetable group, and they can be raw or cooked, and they can be fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. They can be whole, cut up, or mashed. And vegetables are organized into 5 different subgroups based on the type of nutrients that they provide. So there is dark green, red and orange, beans, peas, and lentils, starchy, and other vegetables. So this is why MyPlate suggests varying your veggies. The recommended daily intake for vegetables is around 2 to 3 cups per day. So this can be 1 cup of raw or cooked veggies or vegetable juice, but keep in mind that 2 cups of raw leafy salad greens counts as 1 cup from the vegetable group, as they're larger in volume. Vegetables are an important source of many nutrients, so including fiber, different types of vitamins, and phytochemicals. which are protective plant compounds that are associated with health benefits. So it is important to vary your veggies and eat the rainbow because vegetables from different subgroups provide different types of nutrients. So dark green vegetables include things like bok choy, broccoli, collard greens, kale, mustard greens, and spinach. So these types of vegetables are low in calories and provide vitamins A, C, and folate, as well as fiber, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. The phytochemical found in this group is known as glucosinolates. Um, and this phytochemical helps eliminate toxins and waste and plays a role in disease prevention by triggering anti-inflammatory responses. The next subgroup we have is the red and orange vegetables. So this includes butternut squash, carrots, pumpkins, red bell peppers, and sweet potatoes. So these vegetables are a good source of vitamin A, potassium, fiber, and beta carotene. So this can help support a healthy immune system and may decrease inflammation as well. The next group are the starchy vegetables, and examples include corn, green peas, plantains, and potatoes. So these vegetables tend to be a little bit higher in calories than other vegetables, as they're also a source of carbohydrates, but they also do have fiber and antioxidants that help us get energy. So in eating these vegetables, just ensure to be mindful of portion sizes for this group. The beans and peas group includes black, garbanzo, kidney, lima, navy, pinto, soy, and white beans, as well as black-eyed peas, split peas, and lentils. Dry beans and peas are a really good source of protein, fiber, minerals, and folate. Frozen or canned can be used. Those are good options, but just make sure to rinse them before consuming them and buying the canned options that are in low sodium versions. This group is high in protein, which your body needs to form muscles. The last category is known as the other vegetable category, and this includes pretty much anything that doesn't fit into the other 4 categories discussed. So the vegetables in this subgroup vary in their nutrient content, so eating a variety is key. Examples include asparagus, cabbage, celery, cucumbers, tomatoes, mushrooms, zucchini, so any other vegetable not found in the other categories. But since each subgroup contains so many different vitamins and phytonutrients, the main takeaway here is to vary your veggies at each meal to ensure you're getting some from each category. So here I have a few tips of what to look for when buying vegetables. So when buying vegetables, try to buy fresh vegetables in season when they have peak flavor and they're also available at a good price. So the US Department of Agriculture's website actually has a great seasonal produce guide if you're unsure of what types of produce are in season. So right now, veggies like Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, kale, and potatoes are currently in season. Buying vegetables that are easy to prepare, such as pre-washed bags of salad greens, grape tomatoes, or baby carrots, make meal prepping easier and can allow you to include more veggies within your diet. Frozen vegetables contain the same nutrients as raw vegetables since they're frozen at their peak ripeness, so this makes them a great option as well. But when you are shopping, just make sure to pick your frozen vegetables last to make sure they stay frozen on your trip home. And when choosing the frozen vegetables, ensure that they are hard and do not have ice on the packaging. If there's ice on the package, this could indicate that they have defrosted and then been refrozen again. So the fruit group includes all fruit and 100% fruit juice. So fruits may be fresh, canned, dried, or dehydrated. But if choosing canned fruit, just make sure to choose the ones canned in water instead of syrup, as the syrup contains high amounts of refined sugars. So fruits can be eaten whole, cut up, pureed, or cooked. MyPlate recommends that at least half of the recommended amount of fruit eaten should come from whole fruit rather than 100% fruit juice. So this is because whole fruit contains fiber, which, as previously discussed, has a great benefit to our bodies. Although fruit juice does count as a serving of fruit, it can cause blood sugar levels to quickly spike since it does not contain the fiber to balance out the sugar like the whole fruit does. The recommended daily intake for fruits is around 1.5 to 2 cups per day. So the following examples here can count as 1 cup from the food group. So it can be 1 cup of fresh or frozen fruit, half a cup of dried fruit, or 1 cup of fruit juice, 100% fruit juice. So most fruits are low in fat, sodium, and calories, so making them a great snack or even dessert option. They also have many essential nutrients, including potassium, fiber, vitamin C, and folate. Potassium can help lower blood pressure by relaxing blood vessel walls and processing the sodium out of our bodies. So, examples of fruit containing potassium are things like bananas, cantaloupes, honeydew, and guava. Fiber is found in whole fresh fruit, so that's why it is important. Most fruit intake comes from fresh fruit instead of the fruit juice. It helps regulate digestion, our blood sugar levels, and makes us feel full for longer. All fruits are a good source of fiber, but berries such as raspberries, blackberries, and strawberries tend to contain higher amounts per serving. Another important vitamin we get from fruit is vitamin C. So, this vitamin helps our bodies heal cuts and wounds since it's important for growth and repair of tissue, and it keeps our gums and teeth nice and healthy. So, examples include oranges, kiwi, mango, and pineapple. Vitamin B9 is also known as folate, and it helps tissues grow and our cells work. It helps transform food into fuel and gives us more energy throughout the day. So it can be found in citrus fruit, cantaloupe, and banana. So I now want to focus on protein. Protein foods include all foods made from seafood, meat, poultry, eggs, soy products, nuts and seeds, and beans, peas, and lentils, which are also part of the vegetable group. So it is important to eat a variety of protein foods in your diet to get more of the nutrients your body needs, which I will talk a little bit more about in the next slide. Meat and poultry choices should be lean or low fat. So examples include 93% lean ground beef, pork loin, skinless chicken breasts, and turkey. Seafood is also a great source of protein as well. And options that are higher in omega-3s or healthy fatty acids are beneficial to our bodies, such as salmon, mackerel, and tuna, as well as options lower in methylmercury, such as haddock, salmon, and trout. Nuts, seeds, and soy products are a good vegetarian protein option. So these types of proteins are higher in unsaturated fats, which is considered heart healthy, and they're also high in fiber. Choosing these options help limit the amount of sodium and saturated fats that we would get from processed meats and poultry. So it's also important to include those in your diet as well and have a variety of all these different types of protein options. The recommended dietary allowance to prevent deficiency for an average sedentary adult is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.36 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So this is equivalent to around 2 portions of meat, fish, nuts, or tofu per day. So as a guide, a protein portion should fit into the palm of your hand. Protein is an important part of our diet because it functions as building blocks for bones, muscles, cartilage, and skin, as well as blood, and they're also incorporated into enzymes, hormones, and vitamins. So protein foods contain B vitamins, vitamin E, iron, zinc, and magnesium. B vitamins help build tissue and transport nutrients throughout the body. Iron is a mineral essential for growth and development. Magnesium helps build bones and supports muscle function. And zinc and vitamin E can support your immune systems. So it is important to vary your proteins since some proteins have different nutrients than others. Seafood contains omega-3 fatty acids, which are known as EPA and DHA. And it is recommended to eat around 8 ounces of seafood per week to help reduce the risk of heart disease. So the omega-3s found in seafood can help reduce triglycerides, which is a type of fat that can be found in the blood. And it increases HDL levels or good cholesterol levels. So they do this by slowing plaque buildup in the arteries and can that would otherwise cause blood clots. Other protein sources that contain omega-3s besides seafood are options like walnuts, seeds, beans, and edamame. So the last food group I want to talk about today is dairy. So it includes milk, yogurt, cheese, and fortified milk alternatives. The dairy group does not include foods that are made from milk that have little calcium and a high fat content. So examples of this would be like things like cream cheese, sour cream, cream, and butter. It is recommended to choose low-fat or fortified milk alternatives because these options are lower in saturated fats, making them a little bit easier to digest. The recommended intake is around, for dairy is around 3 cups per day. And 1 cup from the dairy group is equivalent to 1 cup of milk, yogurt, or milk alternative, or 1.5 ounces of cheese. Dairy is a great source of both calcium and vitamin D. Calcium is used for building bones and teeth and helps maintain bone strength. Vitamin D helps the body maintain proper levels of calcium and phosphorus, which helps to build and maintain bones as well. Milk and soy milk that are fortified with vitamin D are also good sources of this nutrient. Other sources are examples such as salmon, eggs, and foods fortified with vitamin D, such as orange juice. So here I have a quick and easy meal idea that follows the MyPlate guidelines. So the example I have is a grain bowl, and this can be easily put together by using microwavable whole grain, such as frozen brown rice or quinoa, a steamer bag of veggies, so this can be really any veggie that you enjoy, a protein source such as rotisserie chicken, canned tuna, beans, or tofu, and then a sauce or dip such as guacamole, hummus, or yogurt for healthy fats. So this visual here explains how to measure portions using your hands as a guide if you do not have a measuring cup available. So vegetables or produce servings should be equivalent to 1 to 2 fists. Protein should be the size of the palm of your hand. The carb or grain component should be around 1 handful. And fat can be equivalent to the size of your thumb. So this includes things like oils and dressings. So now that, sorry. Excuse me. So now that we went through all of the components of MyPlate, we can discuss the different ways to incorporate these guidelines into your eating habits. So following these guidelines does not mean you have to stop eating the foods that you enjoy. So we often eat mixed dishes like sandwiches, stir fries, and soups where everything is tossed together instead of eating each category separately. So it is easy to customize and enjoy foods that reflect your personal preferences and cultural traditions, all while following the MyPlate guidelines by applying the proportions to the mixed dish meals. So the MyPlate website makes it easy to follow the guidelines. If you go to myplate.gov, you can find hundreds of easy to make recipes that follow the MyPlate guidelines discussed. So once you're on the recipe page, it's easy to find recipes that you'll enjoy because you can filter them by course, nutrition focus, food groups, cooking equipment, cuisine, and total cost. So I'm now going to walk through some example MyPlate dishes. So here I have a breakfast example. The fruit component consists of kiwi and banana. The vegetables come from potatoes, peppers, and peas. The grain component is the whole wheat toast, and the protein comes from the scrambled eggs. So this is considered a nice balanced breakfast that will fuel your body and keep you full until your next meal. This stir fry is an example of a mixed dish. So you can see that the dish still includes components from the different food groups, but they are all mixed together. The veggies included are carrots, peppers, onions, mushroom, and broccoli. The grain comes from brown rice, and the protein component is the chicken. So this next example is a bean and rice enchilada. It is a vegetarian dish that still meets the MyPlate guidelines. The veggies come from the salsa, which has tomatoes and onions. The grains come from the brown rice and the whole wheat tortilla, and protein is found in the beans and cheese. Pasta bolognese is another mixed dish. The veggies come from the sauce, which has carrots, celery, onions, and tomato. The grain is the whole wheat pasta, and protein comes from lean ground beef and cheese. The last example I have for you today is a falafel sandwich, which is another good vegetarian option. The veggie comes from lettuce, tomato, parsley, and garlic. The grain component is from the whole wheat pita bread, and protein is from the yogurt sauce and the falafel, which is made up from garbanzo beans. So all these recipes and many others can be found on the myplate.gov website. So I highly recommend checking it out if you have the time. So I wanted to include this visual here because it shows that you can still enjoy the foods you like, but following the MyPlate guidelines can make the dish more nutrient dense, which fuels your body and has you feeling good after your meal. So by making some substitutions and adding in more veggies, you can enjoy a burrito bowl while still meeting the MyPlate guidelines. So a couple examples of the switches made is choosing 1 cup of brown rice over 1.5 cups of white rice and adding romaine lettuce, using reduced sodium beans, adding in more veggies such as grilled peppers and onions, and using fresh avocado and fresh salsa instead of guacamole and jarred salsa. Following MyPlate will help you adapt to an overall healthy eating style by influencing your food choices. So following an overall healthy eating pattern comes with many benefits, including regulating the digestive system, supporting immune function, and reducing the risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. MyPlate is based off of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which gets updated every 5 years and uses current science-based research to determine the recommendations. So although MyPlate may seem like a simple and important tool, it can actually be hard to make these changes. So when compared to a healthy dietary pattern, most Americans ages 1 and older have room for improvement. So in the graph on the left, the center line represents the goal or limit recommendation for each food group. The purple bar represents the percent of the population at or above the recommendation, and the blue bar represents the percentage of the population below the recommendation. So 80% of the population does not meet the recommendation for fruit, which can be increased by eating more whole fruits as snacks or including them as a salad topping. 90% of the population does not meet the recommendation for vegetables. Vegetables can be easily included in many of the mixed dishes that you already eat. So to increase vegetable intake, it is helpful to increase the vegetable content of these mixed dishes or eat more vegetables as a side dish. This can be done by making sure you always have some frozen veggies on hand. Intake of protein foods are pretty close to the target amounts, but much of the population does not meet the recommendations for specific protein subgroups. So the protein food groups includes foods from both animal and plant sources. It includes meats, poultry, eggs, seafoods, nuts, seeds, and soy products. So about 75% of Americans meet or exceed the recommendation for meats, poultry, and eggs, but almost 90% do not meet the recommendation for seafood, and more than 50% do not meet the recommendation for nuts, seeds, and soy products. So as previously mentioned, protein options should be varied in our diet due to the different health benefits that comes with each type. So this means making sure to not only focus on consuming meats, but also including nuts, seeds, beans, and seafood in the diet. Whole grains are another important part of the diet, but 90% of the population does not meet the recommendation for whole grains. There are several ways to increase your intake for whole grains. So first, choosing 100% whole grain foods for at least half of all the grains consumed throughout the day. So this can be identified when whole grain or whole wheat is the first or second ingredient in the food. Another way to ensure you're getting whole grains is by shifting from refined to whole grain versions of commonly consumed foods, as mentioned earlier. So for example, switching from white to 100% whole wheat breads, or from white rice to brown rice, or even from regular pasta to whole wheat pasta. Finally, 90% of the population does not meet the recommendations for dairy, so it is important to increase intake of dairy in fat-free or low-fat forms. The dietary guidelines for Americans also includes recommendations for sodium, sugar, and saturated fats, all of which should be limited when following a healthy eating style. So it is recommended to have 30 grams or less of added sugar per day. So the average added sugar intake for Americans is nearly 71 grams of added sugar per day. So as you can see in this chart, most added sugar intake comes from sugar-sweetened beverages. So a good way to decrease sugar intake is by switching to water, flavored water, seltzers, or diet or zero sugar options if available. The dietary guidelines also recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. So sodium can play a big role in increasing our blood pressure, and it can also lead to heart disease. So the average sodium intake for Americans is nearly 3,400 milligrams per day. Most sodium comes from processed foods and pre-made foods. So a good way to look out for sodium intake is by looking at food labels to identify foods low in sodium. So low sodium foods have 140 milligrams or less of sodium per serving. The final topic I want to briefly touch on today is saturated fats. Saturated fats can be found in animal products such as red meats, fried foods, and full-fat dairy products. These fats are solid at room temperature and include things like butter and fatty cuts of meat. So these types of fats are considered unhealthy for the heart since they decrease the HDL cholesterol levels. This can increase your risk for heart disease as well as stroke. So a few good ways to reduce saturated fat intake is by choosing grilled or broiled meat instead of fried, aiming for leaner meats such as turkey or chicken, limiting red meat to around 1 to 2 times per week, and switching from full fat milk to low fat milk. Since we're talking about fats here, I thought it would be beneficial to briefly discuss unsaturated fats. So unsaturated fats are considered heart healthy fats, and they are liquid at room temperature. They come from plant foods like nuts and seeds, as well as vegetable oils. So unsaturated fats lower your LDL cholesterol levels or bad cholesterol levels. So overall, we want to choose unsaturated fats over saturated fats when we can. So some ways to do this is by using olive oil or vegetable oil instead of butter when cooking, choosing low-fat milk or fortified milk alternatives over whole milk, and choosing leaner cuts of meat. So MyPlate is a great tool to use when putting together different meals. It's a reminder of what and how much we should put on our plate to follow healthy eating guidelines. So there is an emphasis on varying different vegetables and proteins, as different options from each of these groups provides us with different types of nutrients. A big component of MyPlate is including more fruits and vegetables in your diet overall. So this can be done by making half the plate fruits and veggies. There's also an emphasis on including more whole grains in your diet. So since they have many benefits to our body, so they provide us with more nutrients and fiber than refined grains. So ensuring to make half of your grains, half of your servings from whole grains come from whole grains. Finally, be mindful of portion sizes by using your hands or a physical plate as a measuring guide. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all learned something new. And please let me know if you have any questions by putting them in the chat.
Thank you so much, Cristelle.
Thank you.
We're now at the end of the session. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. We have a question regarding the MyPlate guidelines. Should we follow them for every meal of the day?
Oh, that's a great question. So, as mentioned throughout the presentation, MyPlate is a helpful guide for creating balanced meals, but it doesn't necessarily have to dictate every single meal that you eat. So, its main purpose is to ensure that you're getting a good mix of nutrients throughout the day from each of these 5 different food groups. So you can use its guidelines to plan your meals, but it's not a strict rule and does not have to be perfect for every meal. So the main focus is variety and balance over time. So if one meal doesn't perfectly align with MyPlate, it's okay as long as your overall diet is balanced. So following MyPlate will help you adapt to an overall healthy eating style by influencing your food choices over time. So you'll start subconsciously adapting to these types of practices. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Can you briefly touch upon how we can balance snacks? Is it okay to include them in our diet?
Yeah, that's another really great question. So snacks are a great way to manage your hunger between meals. So they can be great options when chosen mindfully. So if you find yourself going around 4 to 5 hours before your next meal, it may be a good idea to include a snack. So when choosing snacks, so the way to balance it is to include a source of carbohydrates that includes fibers, so such as a vegetable, a fruit, or a whole grain, and making sure to pair it with a protein. So pairing the carbohydrate with the protein will help manage blood sugar levels and prevent spikes in the blood sugar. It will also help balance energy levels. So this is because the protein slows down the digestion and helps you feel full for longer. So instead of eating a snack with only carbohydrates. So what happens when you have only carbohydrates is that your body breaks it down much faster into different sugars, and the sugars go into your bloodstream. So this causes a spike in blood sugar levels, which we don't want to see. So pairing it with the protein can slow this down. So a few examples of balanced snacks can be options like grapes and string cheese, where grapes would be the carbohydrate source, the string cheese would be a protein source. Another option is carrots with hummus, or apples and bananas with peanut butter. So all of these options have a carbohydrate component as well as a protein component.
Thank you. We have a participant who has teens involved in sports. They drink protein supplements and pre-workout drinks. What are your thoughts on guidelines regarding these non-food items? Are there guidelines for these?
I'm actually going to defer that question to Erin or Emily because I'm unsure of what the specific guidelines are.
Yeah, so I can jump in a little bit, and I think I will just preface this and say we are not pediatric dietitians, but to kind of speak broadly over some of the talking points on this is that so most people are meeting their protein needs. There is some research to show getting a little bit more protein can be helpful with sports and muscle recovery. Now, obviously, this becomes a very nuanced conversation and one that would be better served one-on-one. But what I will say is that some of those drinks do have caffeine in them, sometimes in high amounts. They can also have a lot of added sugar. And so I think if you're looking for a way to talk about some of those drinks with your family, with your teens, maybe focusing on those components. They're not necessary for most of us, but some of the risks I think associated, I would hone in on those two aspects.
Thank you. Can you provide any tips on a high protein, no sugar diet?
So as mentioned during the presentation, Americans are exceeding the recommended intake for added sugar. So there's much opportunity to lower this by being mindful of nutrition labels and keeping in mind what the recommended amount of added sugar per day is. So it should be no more than 35 grams of sugar per day. So it is not recommended to completely cut out a nutrient from your diet, since our bodies break down carbohydrates into sugars for fuel, since our brain runs on carbohydrates. So instead, choosing carbohydrates that are higher in fiber levels, so any whole grains or fruits and vegetables. So this will provide energy and keep you full, as well as balancing your blood sugar levels and just ensuring to pair the carbohydrate with the protein. So then every time we're eating a carbohydrate, there's a protein source that will help increase your protein intake, and just being mindful of which carbohydrates we're choosing can help with that as well.
Thank you. You had mentioned earlier on that frozen fruits can be an option. Are they just as beneficial as fresh fruits?
Yeah, they are. So frozen produce, so fruits or vegetables, get picked at their peak ripeness, and that's when they're frozen. So that's when they have the most nutrients. So some may argue that they may be better than fresh fruit. So they have the same nutritional value, same nutritional components. They're a really good option to just keep in the freezer, so you always have on hand. It can help increase your fruit and vegetable intake as well.
I will say one caveat to the frozen fruit is if you're getting like pre-made smoothie mixes, just being mindful that sometimes depending on the fruit, they may be adding sugar. So another good opportunity to check the nutrition label. And the line that's really important to look at is added sugar versus total sugar. We're naturally going to have sugars in the fruit, so the total sugar line matters less. It's really added. What are they actually putting in it, and checking that number there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aside from the myplate.gov website, are there any online resources that you would recommend?
There's another website, it's called eatingwell.com, that has also some good recipes. And then we have the MGH nutrition website. So that's it's called BeFit. So if you just do a search, Emily, could you just remind me of the URL for that? Is it befit?
Yeah, mghbfit.com. Yeah, it has some
MGHBFit.
recipes on it and some supplementary material.
Yeah, it has a lot of great resources, so I highly recommend checking that one out as well.
Wonderful. And while we wait to see if there are any final questions in the chat, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just thank you everyone for joining today.
Thank you so much. I don't think I see any more questions, so I think it's okay to end our session a few minutes early. Thank you, Cristelle, for joining us today for a wonderful presentation. And thank you for everyone for taking the time to join us. Hopefully you found it helpful. As I had mentioned, today's session is being recorded. If you're interested in viewing the recording, it'll be made available on the Blum Center website at massgeneral.org/Blum-Center. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.